IVM.
Folks, welcome to Credit Smart with CIBIL. I'm your host, Anupam Gupta. I'm an author and the host of the Paisa Paisa podcast, and my guest today is Sujata Ahlawat, Senior VP and Head of TransUnion CIBIL. In this episode, we explore the often mysterious world of credit reporting, learning what can impact your personal record and how it affects your ability to borrow. Welcome, Sujata. Great to have you back in another episode of our podcast.
Wonderful to be back, Anupam.
Fantastic. So today's episode is about understanding your CIBIL score, and this is pretty important, right? The CIBIL score is important, the report is important. So let's start with a bit of rewind for our listeners on what exactly is a CIBIL score and how is it relevant to our personal finances today.
So, Anupam, I think let's start with what a credit report is and what CIBIL does, right? So, CIBIL is a credit information company. We, as we mentioned earlier as well, all the banks submit your information, that is any kind of loan that you have taken since inception, to CIBIL on a regular basis. So any kind of credit cards, personal loans, consumer durable loans, any kind of credit facility that has been taken by a consumer, and the performance on a month-on-month basis is reported to CIBIL. Basis this information, what we create is a CIBIL report. We know a CIBIL report has your account details, contact details, personal details. How are you performing back on a regular basis? So all this information is collated into a credit report, which banks and lenders use to sanction your next loan, saying that how have you performed on different products that you've taken as well. Basis this information which is there in a credit report and your performance, a CIBIL score is generated. So a CIBIL score, in easy words, is a 3-digit numeric summary of your credit report. It considers your previous performance and talks about how likely are you to pay back in future as well. So the higher the score, it ranges from 300 to 900. The higher the score, the better it is. It's based on your past credit behavior, such as borrowing and repayment. So while we do consider repayment, borrowing is also an extremely important fact as well. And these are shared regularly with banks and financial institutions when they underwrite loans for new consumers as well. It's very important to understand that while CIBIL score is a good indicator of how you are performing in your credit profile, a credit report is also considered by banks. So a credit report basically has the last 3 years of information of your repayment as well. So, as you start looking at the use cases, I think we've spoken about it, while loans are very important, but the way we are seeing the industry and the way we are seeing the industry evolving, it's becoming much more than that, right? Earlier, it was getting faster loans. Now it's cheaper loans because banks do offer better interest rates if you maintain a good credit profile and a high CIBIL score. But as you start looking at the way things are moving, whether it's you're fulfilling your dreams for your first car, first smartphone that you want to take, your first house. So a high CIBIL score and a good credit report goes a long way in helping you fulfill those dreams as well.
That sounds like an exam to me. I mean, is there anyone who's got 1,000 out of 1,000 by any chance, or is that not possible, or what?
900 should be an aspiration for everybody.
900.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming that if you're 750 plus, you're kind of...
So anything above 730 is considered a good CIBIL score.
My God, that's a lot of pressure. I mean, I think last I checked, I was at a 795 or something. I'm trying to push it towards 800 or something of that sort.
So I think that's become, I think that's important. Like, that's an aspiration as well. How do you, that's one of the big changes that we are seeing is consumers are proudly talking about, I'm a good customer. And I think that's the change that we've seen where consumers are demanding what they deserve, the better interest rates from bank as well. So clearly, it's easy to maintain good CIBIL score, right? I think it's in your hands, and there are a lot of things that you can do to ensure that you increase and maintain it.
Nice competition to have among people. Okay, wonderful, Sujata. Thanks for that recap and setting the stage for our next and very important topic is how to read our CIBIL report, right? So tell us what constitutes the report and how I should go about reading it.
So, Anupam, let's begin with the fact that how do we collate that report, right? Like I mentioned earlier, banks and different lenders submit information to us on a regular basis. So, combining all this information about you as an individual, we form this report. So, when you start looking at what are the parts of a report, it becomes extremely important. So, the entire report is consisting of, like I said, your CIBIL score. That's the most important one, which is a summary of your report. There's a credit summary as well, where we help consumers understand in simple languages that, okay, these are 5 loans, this is the outstanding, this is how you can build it. Your personal information. So every time you take a loan or inquire for a loan from a bank or a financial institution, you give your personal details. That is a part of the report as well. So whether it's your PAN number or your telephone number or the income that you would have given earlier, the reason we have that is for a bank to get a comprehensive view of all the information that is available. So personal information, date of birth, gender, all the identifiers that you've given are a part of this report as well. Your contact information. So every time you apply for a loan, you give your new telephone number. That's a part of the report as well. Employment details, like I mentioned, it is when you've taken the loan for the first time. Those are a part of the credit report as well. And the most important part, I think, is the account information. Now, let's look at what does an account information carry. So it's the loan type you've taken, the repayment behavior. So are you paying back? So last 36 months of repayment behavior. So if you're paying regularly, it will be reported as standard or zero. And if you are, say, the number of days late. So if you're 30 days late, it will be reported as 30. So the loan amount you've taken, the tenor you've taken, any kind of utilization that you're doing on credit card. The name of the lender becomes extremely important as well. So it's basically a month-on-month record of the repayment of that particular account. So if you have 5 accounts, so you have 3 credit cards, 2 personal loan, all of that will be a part of the credit report. And the last, I would say the most important section for a consumer is the inquiry section. And the reason I say it's important is as consumers start looking at checking and monitoring the credit profile, you're actually taking care of your data as well, right? So inquiry would be every time you apply for a loan or a credit facility with the lender, an inquiry is generated. So whether it's a personal loan or a credit card or the latest BNPL as well, right? If you're looking for a pay later loan, that comes as an inquiry. It talks about which is the lender you've applied with, when did you apply. However, it's very important to understand that when an individual is checking their own report, like I said, we need to monitor regularly. That doesn't get added as an inquiry because it's you taking care of your information and wanting to monitor, and that does not have any impact. So basically, all this information is collated in a very, very easy to understand format for a consumer along with the score. It's very important for consumers to continue checking this on a regular basis and making sure that it is updated, the information is right. And of course, along with all of this, we do have a lot of education content that we build along the report as well.
Yeah, and there's the CIBIL app also. You can just download it and keep on being, every maybe once in a month. You can get the notifications also from the app that lets you be in touch, right?
Absolutely. For us, Anupam, one of the biggest things is empowering consumers, right? CIBIL for every Indian is the theme that we are going ahead with. So we do have the app, both Android and iOS. You can continue monitoring it. Our website and the dashboard is available in 5 languages. So everybody can go and check. Moreover, we offer, as per RBI guidelines, we offer 1 free annual credit report on our site. I think it's very important for consumers to avail that and start the journey to continue building a good credit future.
Yeah, and you also get a notification that your credit score has changed. So boom, you can actually go and check out what happened there, right?
Absolutely. So when we look from a perspective of, like I said, you start the journey, you take the first report, check how it is. We have then built products which are very pro-consumer. So alerts, like you said, is a subscription that we offer, saying that every time there's a change, there's a new phone number that is added, you get notified, which is a big thing. You know that nobody is misusing your data. Identity protection is in our hands because we hear so many cases right now. A new loan or a missed payment, consumers get informed as well. So clearly helping consumers build and walk towards a good credit profile. I think we do have subscription offerings that we encourage consumers to take once they've taken the free report.
Yeah, I wait for that notification. Maybe my credit score has changed or it's improved. Mere marks बढ़ गए, क्या पता. Okay, any advice, Sujata, to consumers when they are looking at the CIBIL score and report?
So, like I said, Anupam, I would say checking your score regularly, like you said, notifications is a good hygiene check. You know that it's 791, 750, 730. It's good to have. But when you look from a credit report, we do encourage consumers to regularly check the information. So when you look from a credit report perspective, the inquiries which are there, the data in terms of are they paying regularly? One of the previous episodes you did ask me that, am I a 1-day late or a 30-day late, right? How does that impact? So I think it's very important, especially on your credit card repayments, to continue on a monthly basis once you've paid, continue checking your CIBIL report to ensure it is on time, because consistent one-day late payments might also bubble up. So checking report regularly, staying updated of your credit transactions, if you are availing some pay later services or consumer durable services, I think all that will get reported on the bureau as well. Regular reviews once is not enough. The way the financial industry and the way credit options are available, checking one free will not be enough. You need to subscribe for monitoring services, making sure you are checking on a regular basis. And we do offer, like I said, alerts, like you mentioned. We are in our mission to help consumers take charge of their credit profile. We are offering these services where you can stay protected, where we work with you. So clearly, regular check the entire report, not just the score. Stay updated of your credit transactions. And third, monitor regularly.
Fantastic. Okay, Sujata, most obvious question that comes to my mind is when I read this report and I find something off. I've changed my house, for example. I was staying somewhere X and now I'm staying somewhere else Y. It doesn't reflect in the credit report. Or it could be anything. One is personal information, mobile numbers change, addresses change, etc., etc. Let's talk about that first, and then we'll get to the loan part later. After that, please.
So, like I mentioned, credit report has information of all your old details as well. So let's break it up into two parts. You've changed your address and that's not reflecting in your credit report. For that, like I mentioned, we collate the data that is submitted by the banks. Once you write to the bank, they'll submit the new address, it gets updated. However, if there's an issue saying that, why is this old address reflecting in my report? That will reflect, right? It is historical information. We need to make sure that the new ones are updated as well. And the old will continue to stay because that's how a report is formed. What happens if it's not there? So the first thing to check is you can raise a dispute with us. We do have an inbuilt dispute mechanism where you can say that this new address is not reflecting or some personal information is incorrect. So where we do reach out to banks and financial institutions, I think it's important for users to know that we cannot make the changes on our own. We work with the banks and financial institutions. And then, of course, as the information comes back to us, that gets updated.
Okay. The slightly tricky part where I see information in the credit report which I know is wrong, or let's say that I actually made a payment on time and that's not been captured well, or what has gathered attention in social media nowadays, which is that where did this inquiry come from? I don't know who this guy is and how dare this, that, etc. Let's talk about that for a while.
Sure. So first part, you made a payment, but it's not reflecting. We do, like I said, we do have a dispute portal where you can write to us and say that I've already made a payment, and then we get in touch with the banks and that gets updated. The second big piece around, you don't identify an inquiry, right? So I would like to break it up into two pieces. Again, linking it to our previous conversations as well. Is it an inquiry that you don't identify, say, a pay later option, right? You went to an e-commerce company. In your mind, you've applied for that credit product or a credit line through an e-commerce company, but the loan reflecting is somebody, some other banking partner or an NBFC partner. So it's very important for consumers to understand that every time an e-commerce company lends, they have a banking or a financial partner at the back end. And it is clearly reflected when you are applying for these credit facilities. And it's very important for users to go in through and read through all the TNCs which are there, which clearly calls out who is lending on their behalf and who have they partnered with. And once they do that, they will identify that, okay, this is a NBFC I see because I applied through an e-commerce company. So that's the first step that we need to take care of. The second, what if something happens that you really haven't applied and you don't identify that lender where the inquiry is showing? We do have an option to raise disputes again for inquiries as well, where you can say that I have not applied here. Once you've made all your checks, because a lot of times we've seen that, when we go back and saying that this was through the partner that, and then consumers realize, yes, I went through that e-commerce company. So you can raise a dispute. We reach out to banks and financial institutions and correct it once we get information from them. So clearly we are working with consumers to educate them about such instances as well in terms of identifying what. So, and it's very important, while we talk about credit report, it's very important for users to take charge of their credit transactions as well. Previous episode, if you remember, you were speaking about 1,000 SMSs of pre-approved loans, right?
Yeah.
You have to be cautious about where you are applying end of the day, because if it's a credit facility, that will get added to your credit report.
Yeah, folks, so do keep note of that. And that is a wrap on this episode. Sujata, thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
It's been my pleasure, Anupam. And I just want to tell the listeners that it's easy to build and maintain a credit score. You just need to be diligent, and it's a marathon. So practice for it and continue, keep running
And good habits and tips that you have got from this episode, from this podcast, are going to help you to maintain your credit score. Sujata, thank you so much. And that is a wrap on this episode of Credit Smart with CIBIL. This is your host, Anupam Gupta, along with Sujata Ahlawat from TransUnion CIBIL, signing off on this series. We wish you a happy credit journey. You can find the previous episodes and other such shows on the IBM Podcast app, website, and on all major podcast streaming platforms.